Welcome
Okay.
to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Mara, and I have with me sci-fi dystopian author, debut author, D.A. Murray. Welcome, D.A.
Hi. Great to be here.
Oh, I am so excited to talk to you. I have like a list of questions, but we can go off topic by all means. But you're a real Renaissance woman, I must say.
Oh, well, I guess thank you.
It's true. So for those that don't know, and we'll get into it, you're a tech exec and a
Mhm.
debut author, and you did study Japanese in school. So I want to
Yeah,
unpack all of it, but we're going to start with your debut novel.
sure. Happy to do that. The name of my debut novel is Dominion Ascension, and it actually launched in August of 2025. So it's been a few months, and it's the first of a trilogy. And so I'm actually in the process of writing the manuscript, doing some edits to the manuscript for the second book that's going to be coming out. So I'm excited about that as well.
I'm going to stop you right there because
Mhm.
before we get into it, you have a spectacular book trailer on your website. I like to dig around and get to know my authors before they come on, and I was just like, girl, that book trailer is awesome.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it.
It's
Yeah,
a production. No, like, so everyone watching and listening, tell them your website so they can go and look at this book trailer because it is awesome.
sure. It's damurrayofficial.com is the author site. So you can find the trailer and you can actually also be introduced to the main characters. There's an AI component to it where you can kind of answer a few questions and get into some of the themes of the book. So that's kind of fun. And then there's also a book club kit where you can download that, and there's questions, discussion questions. There's actually a cocktail menu and
Hmm.
a culinary menu because in the book, actually, there's cocktails that are actually mentioned in the book. So that was kind of a fun aspect to add as well, and some games. And so the book club kit is it's just a lot of fun.
See, this is what you get when you have a woman in tech, okay? Mad respect because y'all need to hang out on her website. Um, so I want to stop you there because that website is, yeah, you have so much. And
Mhm,
it's unique, right? Like a lot of authors don't have that, but I feel like that is the perfect bringing your tech background together.
mhm,
And you
mhm.
have all sorts of like little bells and whistles. And I was looking at your profile, I'm like, oh, she does that. I wonder how she does that. I wonder how she does, yeah. But that book trailer, were you that young woman that's in it is stunning. So is she a real actor?
She actually is. She
So it's
is.
production. It's a production you put together then.
Yeah, it's definitely a production that was put together, but all of it is licensed content. So it's not originally produced content, but yeah.
I wasn't thinking that you were no, you know everything about intellectual properties being in the tech
Yeah,
world. So no, I never once
exactly.
thought that it was anything other. But no, I'm impressed because productions are expensive. You know, and
Yes, they are.
you put in you invested some money for that and it shows.
Well, I'm glad that you like it. I love it when people actually watch the trailer, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so that, you kind of have high expectations. You're talking about there's going to be a trilogy. So, is there going to be a trailer per book?
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely. No question about that. So it's and I think it all if you read book number one, you'll kind of get a flavor for what book number two is going to be about. So that's a kind of a good hint as well. So
okay. One last thing, we'll get into the book. Are you on set while they're producing it?
when they were doing the trailer,
Yeah,
no, it was all done on the laptop, all of it.
it was done. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Laptop, yeah, on laptop. It's all AI driven. Yeah, all of it. Yeah,
She?
yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is like amazing. No, I thought it was just like a production set, and let me tell
Oh, no, that would be hugely expensive.
you that
But yeah, you can actually create, yeah, there's ways to create content. There's all kinds of different tools and platforms that you can, put together some really exciting creative. Yeah.
girl, I thought that was real because let me tell you where I was going with this. If I had any one of my books made into a trailer, you couldn't tell me nothing, okay? I would think I have like made it in this world. I'm like, can't tell me nothing.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun for sure.
Kudos to you. So, Dominion Ascension, love the title. Walk us
Mhm.
through, no spoilers unless you want to, of course, it's your
Sure.
body of work. But walk us through the premise and then
Hmm.
like the backstory, like what made you decide to do it because you have a very successful career in technology. So next,
Hmm.
you don't have to write a book.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Well, I'd have to start with the fact that I've always been a writer, not professionally, but just I've always enjoyed writing. So it was always my intention at some point to actually write a book for sure.
Okay.
And I had, I was inspired a few years ago just because I really was, kind of in a state of going through transition with respect to, my career, thinking about what do I want to do in addition to this? How do I really want to explore my creative side and do something really exciting? And, that's when around that time, COVID had showed up, so we had, the pandemic, and I was pretty much just working from home every day. And so I got, and there wasn't a whole lot to do outside of obviously, working at home, and you're at home quite a bit. And that's when I really started to dig into, writing again. And what did I want to talk about? I really wanted to talk about life experiences, but
Mm.
I wanted to do it in a way that was really entertaining and fun, yet meaningful. And that was really important to me. And I wanted the experiences to be things that, women could relate to on
Yeah.
many levels, emotionally, professionally, psychologically. I wanted the theme to be very close to home.
Mhm.
And so I started to just kind of play around with some different concepts. And it just occurred to me, one of the things that I love, love, love is I love speculative fiction. I've always have. I'm a huge fan of it. And so I started to think about, what about a near future novel? So I wanted it to be something where it was far enough away where the concept didn't seem like it was right in our backyard.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it would be easier to talk about because it wasn't immediately affecting people. But I wanted it to also be probable. And so I made it near future as opposed to like 100 years into the future type of thing.
Well,
And
when you wrote it, we were like quasi dystopian world during.
yeah, well, these are some of the things that kind of were a little bit different. I mean, for sure, Dominion is the United States about 30 years into the future. And on top of that, actually, government is led by women, women only.
I love
So
that.
I know. And men, of course, are in, are part of the society, but they are all more so subject to a assigned role within society. And there's about 6 different roles that they can be assigned to. And the reason for this is because all of this complete kind of flip, the script, so to speak, happened as a result of a great war, and there was chemical and biological warfare. And the result of that, one was that the majority of men were rendered infertile. And the second thing is that they were also, most of them as well, were mentally, had been, cognitively impaired.
Mm.
And so the results of those two things combined, it really did force women to come to the forefront and take over the reins, so to speak, to try to, kind of guide, the country out of this very, very dark place that it was in, from a leadership and a vision perspective. So this is, Dominion, and this is about what this society looks like today, and to take it a little bit closer to home so that, women can really identify and understand it. It's through the eyes of the protagonist. Her name is Danny Matthews. Mm-hmm. And she is someone who has certain struggles with her mother. And in the process of trying to reconcile, becoming an adult in her mother's eyes, mm-hmm. she's taken on this very Herculean role of trying to find the truth, if you will, about Dominion, because she knows that things aren't quite right. And so the entire premise of the story is about how she reconciles her emotional relationships with her mother, her friends, her lovers. I did say lovers, plural. And then also how she tries to go about finding the truth about Dominion. And she does that. She goes through that journey with a childhood friend by the name of Robbie. And together they go on a journey to discover the truth about Dominion. And there's a whole host of different things that happen on that journey that help to, give them some sense of clarity about what's going on. So it's an exciting piece of the story, I think. I got very enthralled with it. So.
Don't you think it's very relatable? Complicated relationships, that whole mother-daughter dynamic can be, people are challenged by that. But just in general, don't you think, even though it's in a sci-fi dystopian, it's relatable?
Absolutely. And that was the point, is I wanted it to be relatable. I did not want it to be so far in the future where people go, well, wait a minute, because, and I'm glad that I did that, because one of the things I've been able to do is I do a number of book clubs. I'll go to book clubs and sit in on the discussion parts, and the conversations are so rich. And the thing that makes it, I think, really exciting to hear people talk about it is because, it is all hypothetical, but within the context of something that is somewhat probable. It's not so far out there that it just seems like, oh, that could never happen. But then it's not something that we're kind of politically motivated about right this very second, that we're in the throes of it and we're trying to debate it. So it's a really nice sweet spot where people can really explore it and not feel emotionally charged by the content.
Well, and I think too, a lot of sci-fi is written by men for men.
That is true as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's actually very funny that you mentioned that, because one of the concerns I had before the book was released was how men were going to react to it. I thought, wow, this could totally blow up in my face.
The power dynamic has reversed. And so when you said that there was only like 6 roles for men, I thought, well, that's not too far away from the roles that women had been assigned, for centuries, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, again, what was so interesting when, hearing men, talk about the book and, kind of what they gleaned from it. Yeah. Again, it was just more philosophical in nature to them. Like, they didn't feel threatened. They didn't feel like it was some kind of a, punch in the side of the face about, where you should be or where we think you are. It really wasn't like that. It was much more so, this is a really interesting concept to dig into and talk about. What is it? And it wasn't so much about, you got a lot of men who are infertile, cognitively impaired. The richness of the conversations were also a lot about being in a society where choice is exceedingly limited. You don't have the choice to be what you want to be, pursue what you want to pursue. Education is finite. It is contained. And so there is very much this sense of, this is a society where so much is controlled to the point where, at what point does the individual start to come out of this relative to the people or everyone as a whole. Because if you think about it, here's a society trying to come back together after a devastating experience. And it's all about, how do we get the masses together? How do we get everybody in a place of peace, so to speak, where we can actually get a functioning government and a societal engagement where people can actually benefit? And I think in the context of that, the individual gets lost, and it's all about the collective mass of individuals, as opposed to stand out and to think, to be different in some way, shape, or form. That's not really something that is permitted at this point.
Well, but that theme has been in mankind since the start. There are,
Absolutely.
under a dictatorship, and there's always dictatorships. We look to Stalin, we look to Hitler. I mean, we look to the dictators today, and so people's choices are limited. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
women in certain parts of the country, certain parts of the world, are very restricted, and they don't have.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it seems like even though this was written 30 years in the future, it makes it even more relatable to those that are reading it, because there are women that live under that oppression.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, to kind of take that a step further, as earlier noted, now we also have a propagation of the species issue, because fertility is a challenge. And, sometimes, I'll hear people say, oh my goodness, it's like Handmaid's Tale in reverse. Well, the thing is,
I didn't think
I,
about that, but
I know. I mean, I get it. I get it. But I think the premise is very different. I think Handmaid's Tale, and Margaret Atwood, tremendous respect for
oh,
such an amazing author. Amazing author.
she literally.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, and I think a lot of the theme and the premise of Handmaid's Tale is very much rooted in a theological context, right? About the story of, Abraham and Sarah and her handmaid, her maid. This story is about technology at the forefront, and how technology has been integrated into society to the point of, where does humanity start and where does it end? So, while again, the implications are definitely significant and severe in some cases, the impetus for why society has kind of changed in this way is really, just a little bit different. There's not kind of a religious doctrine that's really guiding the societal choices. It's
right.
much more around the technological advances that have made certain opportunities more accessible.
Do you think that's part of the rebuilding? Because a lot of dystopian is about the world, collapsing or tearing down.
Yeah.
Yours is about rebuilding.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that I really do lean very heavily in is the humanity of it, the relationships, parent, child. Those types of relationships are so fundamental, regardless of whatever type of society you live in.
Yep.
And so the idea of, how are these relationships impacted? And I think that that's another component of it that is really, really important. And the other question that I've heard a lot in the book clubs have been things like, well, there's kind of this immediate assumption, well, if society was run by women, well, of course, it would be more empathetic. We would be, there'd be less wars. There's all these, assumptions. And I said, but what about the theory or the impact of power? Because you're talking about one sex that has the power and another that does not. So there's going to be ramifications, right, of just the distribution of power and the choices that one can make, right, to retain that power. And so that's another component of it. It's the power dynamics at play that I think are so incredibly interesting, and choices that are made to keep society currently as it's been established.
Oh, I completely agree. And that power imbalance and dynamic, We face it everywhere. We face it in the workplace. You face it when you go to school, if you're trying to get a
Hmm.
scholarship. I mean, it's always all over. So I know we do say that, like, oh, if women ruled the world, different, not as many conflicts, but you can't say that because we do have conflicts in our friendships and our work relationships and our marriages. It's everywhere.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that's important, I think, to also grasp is power is not always taken away immediately. It's taken away in bits and pieces along the way. And
I
that's something that really does come across, in some of the experiences that you read in the book. But that's very, very typical
Mhm.
of many, many societal outcomes where, it may not seem like a big deal. And then something else is taken away. It's just kind of this systematic, kind of complete decomposition, if you will, of this the system or this right or this freedom that people have learned to appreciate and maybe not value it as much because they take it for granted or whatever the case may be. But power is not always something that is immediately just grabbed. It is often taken away in small bits and pieces, and that's the other thing.
I love that distinction because, yeah, we do always feel like it's like coming guns a-blazing, but no, it can be taken slowly over time. It just ebbs away, and then before you realize it, you're powerless.
Absolutely. And I think when you think about that, also think about it within the context of how the element of fear can enable that slow destabilization, right? And so I think all of these elements together really do play a significant role in the mindset of the women and the men
Hmm.
in Dominion.
So, do those principles hold through in book two, or do you have a shift of themes?
The principles still hold through, but one of the things that are it's really important to note is that when you have a dystopia,
Mhm.
it is not sustainable.
Correct.
So
As
that kind of
usual,
gives you an idea. Kind of, things happen. There's a lot of disenfranchised, groups of people and desires that have to be, met. And all of that is very difficult to balance. So Dominion's still a very, very young world.
hint as to what's. Yeah, you said. I said no spoilers, but you're like, I'll give you a big old hint.
I mean, it's a natural progression. So if you read the book, you'll be like, oh, I got to see how
Oh,
is this going down the road, right?
so how long? You said you're in it right now, writing it. When do you think that'll be released? How long do we have to wait?
I expect it in 2027. Hmm.
Ah, okay.
This is one of the outcomes of being a full-time tech exec and writing at night and on the weekends. I wish I could dedicate 100% of my time, right, to writing, but I don't have that kind of time. So I really have to be very efficient with my time when I am writing. And I actually wrote the detailed outline for book number 2 in August of 2024.
Oh,
You can believe it. But I had to shift all of my focus to getting book number 1 fully edited and ready to release and then promote. So, there's only so many balls in the air that you can manage.
well, how long does it take you to write? Because I'd imagine when you're away from your work, you're thinking about it. And I think that time that it marinates, you come up with better ideas.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons why as you're going through the whole creative process, it doesn't stop at like your first, draft. If anything, your first draft is like, let me trash this and, keep going. But it really does. You develop it, whether you've got, developmental editor, you've got alpha readers, beta readers, like you kind of go through iterative, processes of kind of making the story better and making sure that it flows and it's clear. And that's actually one of the things that was really challenging when you are working with different timelines, characters, and you got to be very clear about when things happen and the ages of your characters, and does that make sense that they'd be doing this at this time? And there's kind of Dominion, post Dominion, there's, so a lot of that keeping the story straight and consistent is something that's also a huge part of moving things forward, so that when people read it, there's a fluidity to the storyline.
Well, you're a techie girl. How do you keep that straight? Is there any kind of like magic tech tools that you use?
I mean, I don't think I use anything that's really like out of sight here. I mean, it's pretty standard stuff. I mean, I'll get on a spreadsheet in a minute and start plotting out my characters, and doing things like, the whole profile, when they were born, who their parents are, what do they look like, all of that stuff. So building out character profiles is obviously really, really important. And I think when it comes to things like when there's certain milestones throughout the story, does it make sense that this particular event occurred at the time that it did?
Yeah.
Or is this inconsistent with maybe something else that's going on in the story? So you do a lot of that back channeling and aligning on things that make sense. And if something is like, hey, there's no way this could have happened, it's too soon, whatever the case may be. So that's a huge lift. And the more you can be organized about that in the beginning, the better things are. But if you're kind of one of those folks that's kind of like, you just kind of free throw, right? Then you got to go back and figure it all out.
So you're a plotter is what I'm hearing.
Very much so.
So let me ask you this, because it's set 30 years in the future, not, 1,000 years from now. Does it help keep the technology, the sci-fi piece a little bit more closer to home? Because, when you think like some of these are like the year 3000, you have to think like, what are we doing? And like, what are humans doing? What technology do we have? That's tricky. But I think 30 years, you can kind of get away with knowing a little bit closer what the sci-fi tools are like.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is the thing. Of course, technology plays a role, but it is not the star of the story, right? It is something that really does, sit there as a fundamental piece of the story, but it's not the star of the story. The star of the story is about humanity, because for me, it was more about talking about themes of power. What is it like to be to make choices that benefit the needs of the many versus the needs of the few? What does it mean to be a citizen, a good citizen? There were a lot of these kind of, these things that I really wanted to tap into. And so I didn't want the fantastical nature of all the possibilities of technology to take front, kind of center stage in front to some of these other areas, because I really wanted this to be a story where people really sit down and start to think about what it means to be human. I mean, honestly, to be human, what does that look like, regardless of everything that's going on?
There's a lot of hard choices in that.
Yeah, there are.
I mean,
and in the book,
I'm sure there's a million different directions you could go. and you're
Hmm.
thinking, oh, not this book or not this way. So that's going to be difficult for you as a writer.
It absolutely is. But I think it's one of those things. It's like your North Star. If
Mhm.
you know why you're writing something and you know the type of emotion you want to invoke, right? You know the type of conversation or engagement you want people to really focus on when it comes to your story. That really does help. It's kind of almost the guardrails of, kind of tells me a little bit about this is my playground, this is my sandbox. And I wanted it to have social and political relativism, but I did not want it to be so politically or socially charged that it becomes a radical type of story. It's too radical. And no, I didn't want to go there because I don't think it's necessary to go there to tell the story in a way that's going to impact minds and really get people having the types of conversations that I think we need to have in society today.
Well, that's such good advice for writers or aspiring writers to kind of go over what are your goals for this story, not for the book, not for sales, not for reviews, but what do you want
Mhm.
to achieve by putting this out there in the world with your name on it?
Right. Well, I think where I really want to go with this story and many, many others is I really do want to be a advocate for women, um, the independence of
Mm.
women, the ability to really find your happiness, just making the choices that you want to make. I had not made, kind of the standard choices in society. I had nothing that I've done as standard. I have to be honest with you about that.
Do you mind
And
elaborate on that? Do you mind?
yeah, no, I'm happy to elaborate on that. So, like for one thing, I knew pretty early on that I definitely I wanted a career that really did allow me to live in different countries, be exposed to different cultures. I wanted to kind of craft or curate my career path in a way that wasn't like just horizontal. You kind of go from here to there, a completely straight line. I wanted to zigzag a little bit. And when I say zigzag, I mean things like, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in finance, I've worked in category management, innovation, I've worked in CPG, retail. I've worked in distribution. I have a very, very rich and deep background when it comes to business, value chain understanding, if you will. And it's because I've done different types of roles that have enabled me to look at business in a different framework. And I think going into technology, that was a big shift as well when I did that several years ago from a very traditional kind of sales and marketing perspective, because I really wanted to dig into tech and really take a very formative role in how companies are thinking about digital transformation. And so my path is not typical at all, but yet it's something I wanted to do. And I forgot to mention within that whole trajectory, I actually started my own company, ran that for 7.5 years, sold that, and then went back into corporate America after a while just because I wanted to do something different. So I've been an entrepreneur, I'm a corporatepreneur, I've worked in court, like I've done all these things, but I really do advocate for, really going for that dynamic way of expanding and growing as, your career in any which way that you want to do that. Secondarily, I chose very early on not to have children. I made that choice a while ago for a whole host of reasons. One of them just simply being there were so many things that I wanted to do, and I found myself being very much attracted to things like, I became a what do you call it? A foster parent for about 2.5 years. I did that. I, have a very active role with, my nephew, for example. So I'm very much engaged in the lives of close family and friends and how I, engage with, the kids, and I love it. But it gives me that opportunity to indulge that kind of maternal side, but I can still kind of do the things that I want to do, which is I want to write, I want to travel, and there's just other things I want to do. And so that was a choice I made quite some time ago, and I love that I made that choice. I think the other choice I made, I was not one of those women that's like, oh my God, I just got to get married tomorrow. I've never felt that way. I have always enjoyed my freedom and my ability to focus where I wanted to focus. So I've had very much of a life of being able to make, choices that really do, I think, kind of reinforce the goals that I've had. So as you can see, not typical stuff by any stretch of the imagination, but so enriching and fulfilling for me. But again, that's my journey, and that's what works for me, and that's the beauty of having choice, right?
Well, and to your point, it takes bravery and courage.
Mhm.
Societal norms are always
Oh
asking
my God. Yeah,
you to get married, when you're going to have kids, when you're going to have the next kid, when you're going to
exactly.
guys.
Exactly.
I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
today's world, we're a little bit more accepting of women. They make those choices not to, not to have kids or not to marry. We don't go to people that are married and be like, why did you get married? Why are you having
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
asking, why are you single? So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
down. And so I'm sure though it was very brave of you to walk that path
Hmm.
in a time where it wasn't socially acceptable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to be clear, definitely yeah, I don't want to have kids, but I had never been against maybe someday having a very significant relationship. Of course, that's okay.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm not going to compromise my values or who I am to be in that type of relationship. So for me, it's just very important to focus on, being the type of person that I want to be. And if there's someone along the way that journey makes sense to do, to go along with, I'm open to that. But again, I think again, I had that choice, right? And that's not the case for everybody.
Well, DA, you're extraordinary. So the man that walks beside you, I mean, maybe has to walk a few paces back because we don't want a shadow in your spotlight. Okay.
Uh, well, I mean, I think the wonderful thing about uh, when you are with a partner is the whole idea, there's always this term about, oh, what is that crazy term? It just drives me crazy whenever I hear people make, like, you make me, I don't know, was it Jerry Maguire or something? And it was that statement
Oh,
about,
you complete me.
you
No.
complete me. Oh, dear God, please. Yeah, I mean, you complete, like, I don't see it like that. I see it more as, we have a journey. You have a journey, your partner has a journey. And it's really just about, I think, having each other's back and caring more about somebody else or just as much about someone else as you care about yourself or whatever. You want to see them happy. You want to see them be successful. You want them to have the things that they want, and they want the same for you. I mean, I don't think that going, through this world alone is by any means the ideal situation. We are human beings. We are meant to love. We are meant to be together. We are meant to support and love and engage with each other. So by all means, I believe wholeheartedly in that. But, I also do not, or I refuse to disappear into someone else's life, or I'm not going to be one of those people that I'm just going to sit over to the side and let somebody else make all the decisions for everything. Like, that's just not something for me. for me.
You know, women do. We've been
Yeah,
told
sure.
to, be quiet, play small, don't stand out, don't look too sexy. It's always like shrinking to make
Yeah.
others comfortable. And you're like, we don't ask, it sounds like a male bash, but we don't ask men to do it. So
Oh,
we,
absolutely not.
we should not.
Absolutely not. If not, it's the complete reverse. Even if, I mean, think about it. It's so funny, how many times I've had conversations with female friends and they've said, oh, there's this job I would love to apply for, but I don't have this one thing or this thing.
Yes.
You have that same conversation with a man. He might not have 5 things on that list. He does not care. He's going to apply for that job and he'll probably get it. You know what I mean? Because there's just a difference in perception
Mm-hmm.
about what's good enough, right? What's
Yeah.
good enough. And just as you can have these same sorts of challenges on a personal level, you can have them professionally, right? This
Oh,
idea of having to, be less than, right, to be tolerated, or not to, you don't want someone to feel, intimidated by you're smart, or you're quick, or you've got some really amazing think big ideas. You don't want folks feeling a little uncomfortable about that around you. And that's a balancing act that takes decades to manage and master.
but imagine you've been through that a few times. Not only are you a woman in tech, but you're also a
Oh
person.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that industry is it's typically one demographic
Hmm.
heavy. And so
Hmm.
I imagine you had a lot of experience with that through
Yeah. And I think, just in general, in corporate America, or even regardless of industry, these types of dynamics exist on different levels. Maybe in some industries, it might be a more heavily skewed male versus female in certain types of roles, that type of thing. But I think that is so much of the narrative, I think, of how do you discover yourself and then stay true to who you are, right? In wake of all of these different, dynamics that you have to deal with, you know. So I think it's a really interesting piece. And actually, I'll mention something else that I think was really interesting. As I was writing Dominion, I had a really interesting kind of epiphany, if you will, about writing and some of the different writing techniques, and just kind of life lessons, and how you can use some of these storytelling techniques and apply them to your life. So, I think one of the ones that I think about, like right off the top of my head, back to this issue of you know corporate America, and how do you really position yourself for, and so that you're not belittling who you are, but you are being true to who you are, that type of thing. There's something about the narrative that we play in our head that almost can kind of confine us to a certain type of role, or to be, the way we perceived ourselves can often flow into how others perceive us. So this whole idea about a narrative and what's in your head, and how do you make that narrative real, to live your life. Now, I think of it differently as something, some people might say, oh, isn't that just positive thinking? Not exactly.
yeah.
Because positive thinking can be like, oh, I'm a great person, I have a great personality, I know I can do this. The narrative that you play in your head, because remember, stories are typically remembered 22 times more than just straight facts,
Yeah.
right? That you may narrate over and over again. So the story that you tell yourself about who you are, what you're doing, what you expect to achieve, those things become very grounded in how you choose to, how you just make choices, how you choose to move with different decisions along the way. So I really did find it just such a close simile to how I was living my life. I was like, I'm writing this story. Now, let me see if I can, how would I think about this in this particular professional scenario or whatever? So I think storytelling is so powerful because it impacts us on a very deep emotional level, but it also impacts our ability to be in touch with our inner selves in a way that I think, you know, all types of art can do. Music, something that's so beautiful, it moves you to the point of tears. I mean, storytelling can do that. And there's no reason why the power of storytelling cannot in some way really invoke a sense of understanding and clarity that allows you to make choices, better choices in life. And ultimately, I think that goes towards just being a happier person, quite honestly.
Well, we talk about being writing can be cathartic.
Oh, yeah.
It is that, but it also is so much more because when you, we all do it, us writers put ourselves into our characters, bits and pieces, but writing and storytelling allows you to work out situations that you
Hmm.
have had in your lifetime. It allows you to make sense of people that you don't understand. You
Yes.
work with them, they may be related to you. And so we use that as a medium to just work out what our emotions are, what confuses us, what our issues are.
Absolutely. It's
Mhm.
all of that. And so it's just it's a very powerful tool when it's leveraged, in that way can really help, I think, just kind of, again, better clarity, better decisions. And also just in terms of the point of view, a failure is not always a failure, and a win is not always a win. I mean, I'm just saying.
It is
There's
true.
a lot of different ways that you can slice and dice it. So I think that I can honestly say writing on this level, being a published author, going through this entire very grueling process,
Yeah. No, hard.
yeah, has in so many ways enlightened me, and I find myself feeling a sense of deep, deep accomplishment. Not, and I mean, there's other things I've done in my life that are, oh, yeah, that's great. But there's
I was going to
something about
say,
writing this book
with your
that,
resume, you're like, writing did it. But you
yeah,
have,
I feel like I still wake up in the morning like, I can't believe this, it's crazy,
love it.
crazy, but it's such a powerful statement
Hmm.
about what you can achieve when something's important to you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about, I want women to know they've got the choice. You've got the choice, and never let anybody take that away from you. And I know that those words may seem somewhat trite or like, oh, I've heard that before,
Yeah.
but there is a way that can translate, and it's very real, because the reality, nobody takes your power, you give it away. I really do believe that. I do believe it.
That's a hard pill for a lot of us to swallow, though,
I
because
know it is,
as
but
society, we like to point fingers and blame people. And, sometimes people play the victim role and
yeah.
are true victims. But yes, to your point, it's really trying, it's hard for us to swallow, like a hard pill for us to swallow. Like, yeah, I gave way.
Hmm.
I gave
Because
way.
to my earlier point, and what I said earlier, power often is taken in bits and pieces when
Yes.
we're not even thinking about it, or we don't even think it's really important. Oh, that's inconsequential. I mean, I can think of a few things that have happened recently where it was bits and pieces, and then all of a sudden, there we are. Here we are.
Well, and that's kind of your platform. You've built a strong platform on TikTok, on Instagram.
Hmm.
And so that's also, I think, it's a theme in your social media.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, much of my social media really did start with me talking to people about what they were reading and what they loved about what they were reading.
Okay,
And
I
I
like
think,
that.
yeah,
So then you have what, writing in tech?
yes, writing in tech. That's another one. So that's much more me talking about, the experience of writing and dealing with some of the barriers or challenges of writing. I've had sessions around talking about how do you really balance, work a career or, with this writing.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. There is no question about it. It is very challenging. And I think you have to love it, and in
Hmm.
many ways, writing is a sense of release for me because the creative side, I've had such a strong creative side, and this is one of the ways that I can really indulge it. Um, but yeah, there's a lot to
But I
any
do
choice
love
that you
that.
make. Yeah.
I love that asking strangers what they're reading. Love it.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun because anytime people talk about something they love, I mean, you can just see the glow in their eyes and they just go on and on and I love it. I love knowing what people are reading I've been a reader. Been a very, very avid reader for my entire life. And so I love hearing about what people are reading and, what are, like if you had to pick a book that you think everybody should read, what's that book? Or, what book could you just read again? You'd love to read again, those types of things. I love
Well,
having those conversations.
I was kind of going, through and watching those, and it was tickled because there was this one gentleman and, asked, what's your favorite book? And he just stopped like, well, what do you mean? I read 60 a year, so how can I quantify it down to one? And so, how did you get started with that series? It's genius. I love it.
Oh my God. Um, well, I just think that it really started, very early on. I knew I wanted to build a platform as an author.
Mhm.
But I didn't have any published works at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't I just talk about writing and talk about reading? Because that to me is the most fun. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're reading and writing. And so that was kind of the premise for, books. And like I said, I've always been an avid reader. So I loved talking to people about what they were reading. And I enjoyed just the conversation. And it just kind of, spitball from there and moved on. So it was a lot of fun.
But you're still doing that because I saw some that were recently posted too.
Yeah, absolutely. Not as frequently as before because what I had to do was when my book was ready to be launched, I had to start kind of slowly pivoting into more so talking about who I am. I mean, because up to that point, I was very much in the background. I was like, hey, I want the folks who are being interviewed. I want them to feel like the star, and I want them to talk. That was really my focus for such a long time. But now it's more of, hey, there's a message here that I really want to get out, and I really want it to resonate with the right people because it's going to resonate with some and maybe not so much with others, and that's okay. But I really had to start to make that pivot.
Well, and I was really intrigued because you've leveraged AI.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, with respect to the trailer, absolutely. Um, oh yeah, and with respect to the characters on my website, my author website, damariaofficial.com, there's a great like character trailer so people can kind of get to know the character. So it's fun from that standpoint. And I'd say those are kind of the two main ways that AI has been leveraged to help bring the story to life for readers. Yeah.
Well, when I messaged you, you had that like AI
Yeah.
response. Oh, what is this? This is so cool. I've seen this before.
Yeah, because honestly, you wish you could be everywhere all 24/7, but I just can't do it. It's not humanly possible.
100%.
So yeah,
Well,
yeah. So
I'm sure, aren't you guys in the tech industry? I mean, hello, by the very nature of technology, that's where AI comes from. But more and more companies are using it and integrating it into their systems, I I spent half a day in AI. It was like Copilot and workflows
Hmm.
and do like
Hmm.
email responders and how to,
Yep.
like, these companies are doing train your agent,
Yep.
you
Yeah,
know?
agentic. Yeah. Yeah, agentic. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
So,
sure.
yeah. So, you're dealing with that almost every single day, correct?
Every day. Every day. Absolutely. And I think, it's so funny, because there's a lot of, discussion around the use of AI in the creative,
Right.
realm of things. And, you
Intellectual.
know, yeah, exactly. And I'm very firmly set on, what I write comes from here. You know what I mean? Now, tell me, I'm not the greatest speller. That's for sure.
Well,
But
I used to
know,
do where a comma goes. I do not know where
I
the
know, I know exactly, like grammar, like all these things,
right.
yeah, that's good. But I think, I very much believe in the power of the creative mind. And so I hold that very dear, when it comes to the work that I do, and the storytelling that I do, the way I tell stories, that type of thing. So, and I think if you talk to any author, would more than likely say, hey, this is really an authentic representation of who I am, and I'm putting words to paper because this is what I'm putting myself in these words for the world to see and consume. So,
Well, and to your point, yes. I mean, that comes from us. Now, I use Grammarly because well,
sure. Yeah, I understand. I mean, yeah, and
I
as
don't know
and
where all.
everybody does. I mean,
Yeah.
you need to correct grammar, you need to correct spelling, like, that's spell check. Like those are things. That's what editors do. Editors day in and day out, they're
And
they're
sometimes,
making sure that their book looks right.
yeah, sometimes they told me, oh, the Chicago Manual of something. I'm like, huh? Or, I'm like, but
I get it. I totally get it.
those are AI tools. And so you're right. It gets a little dicey as to like where us creatives are using it. However, when it says repetitive tasks, such
Yeah,
as
oh yeah.
doing
Absolutely.
your reporting, yeah. So,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
I,
I use AI very much like in my daytime job, especially like to your point, workflows, tasks, repetitive, processes where something that might take me 30 minutes to do, I can get it done in 5.
oh
I
yeah,
need that level of productivity because, companies, I think they're trying to do more with less. That's just the reality of things. And, business is becoming more and more complex. Business challenges are never, just, a straight line. They're often multi-layered, multifaceted, and complex. So I think we need these types of tools to enable just a very wide range of capabilities, and to do it in a way that's efficient, but also in a way that's timely. So this is going to continue, and I'm okay with that. It's that's the nature of things.
well, I used to be a C-suite executive also, and I got to thinking like those board reports, I could have used that when you're having to put together all the repetitive board reports. It's the same thing comes
Right.
with accounting. Everyone has to get their numbers in to be, and if they're doing like a pivot table or a Gantt chart, I'm like, we're doing it manually. Send it and
Absolutely.
puts it all in, and yeah. So,
Absolutely. But think about it too from an efficiency standpoint.
oh,
You're spending less of your time administratively aggregating data and spending more of your time analyzing the data, or kind of, what I mean, you're kind of putting your brain energy in the place that's probably, not probably, but definitely much more high value
exactly.
than the administrative task
Yeah.
at hand. So
Well, two more questions. Uh,
sure.
the first is where can people find you online
Hmm.
to buy your book?
Sure. So you can go to my author site, damurrayofficial.com, and there's actually a section on there where you can see where you can buy the book. The book is available on bookshop, bookshop.org. It's also available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, Walmart.com. So you can go any of those places to purchase the book. And, just distribution is growing. So I'm excited about that.
Okay, if you could wave a wand, where
Yeah.
would you be in 1 year?
Where I would be in 1 year?
If you could wave a wand, where would you be? And anything could be, where would you be?
Oh my God. In 1 year, I think I would really love to be like on an amazingly warm and beautiful island somewhere. Because I'm in Chicago right now, and
Oh,
like
no.
it was like -11 like 3 weeks ago. So I guess that's this whole idea of a tropical island is probably
Yeah.
still in my mind.
You people in
But it's
Chicago, y'all are hardy, tough people because I've seen what do they call it? The winds
the
come
hawk, the
late,
hawk.
it looks like
Mhm.
ocean, and then it's like all like a whiteout. Yeah, you guys are
Oh yeah, oh
super.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I would definitely, I mean, honestly, I would beach home over by the beach. I love the beach. So, tropical island,
It's
beach
80,
home, walking on the beach. Yeah, I would love that. Love
80
that.
today. So
Oh yeah.
okay, I digress. You would be on the beach doing,
Um,
having released.
well, you know what? I've always wanted to have like my writing space overlooking the beach so I could actually go and write, and just look at this amazing view. And I would love, I mean, I would be writing full time, so I could get up in the morning and, do my exercise and, plot my day. Another thing I do is I'm actually also a auctions trader, and I have to trade. I have to swing trade and trade on, kind of like higher time frames because I can't do it daily. I don't have that kind of time to stay on at that time. But that's something else I would do. I would definitely trade on a daily basis because I would have time to do it in the morning, and I would write and travel and spend time with my family. Like those are the kinds of things that I would love, love, love to do because I spend so much of my time traveling, working, and so this would really give me the opportunity to just kind of be with my family and just enjoy life. That's kind of how I see it. So,
Love it. Well, I always say from your lips to the universe's ears, I hope it comes true.
yeah, I think it would be wonderful. I will say though, I do love, love, love working in tech. It is so much fun because it moves so
And it's
fast.
evolving.
It
Wow.
is like every day it's
Like,
different, and I have to admit I love it. I'm not kidding. It gives me a rush. But yeah, I like the trajectory that things are on right now. I really do, and just kind of ride the wave for a bit.
exciting. So yeah, hold on to your hairdo.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it has been an absolute delight getting to know you. And when you are closer to book two, I would love, love, love to have you back. We can catch up as to where you're at with that one.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, you just email me or DM me when you are available, and we'll get some dates together.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank you.
you so very much.
Awesome. Take care.
Ciao for now.